Damien Blackwood, once a master thief, returned to his hometown of Eldridge after years of military service. The town, once filled with life and laughter, was now a shadow of its former self, oppressed under the iron fist of Lord Everard, the nobleman who ruled with cruelty and corruption. As Damien walked through the desolate streets, memories of his childhood flooded back. His sister Leela's smile, the warmth of their family's home. But those memories were quickly overshadowed by the harsh reality before him. Eldridge was a town in ruins. The people, once proud and hard-working, were now beaten down and destitute. Their eyes were hollow, with their spirits broken by years of tyranny. Damien's heart ached as he approached the remains of his family's home, now nothing more than a pile of rubble. It was here that he learned the devastating news from an elderly neighbor. Leela is gone, Damien. Executed by Everard's men for speaking out against him, she said, her voice trembling. The word struck Damien like a blow. His sister, his only family, was dead, killed for daring to stand up to the injustice that had taken over this town. But as the grief took hold, it quickly turned into a burning rage. He swore to avenge her death and bring down the man responsible for the suffering of his people. Damien knew that killing Lord Everard wouldn't be enough. The nobleman needed to feel the same pain and loss he had inflicted on others. He needed to be stripped of his wealth and power, left with nothing. With his resolve hardened, Damien began to quietly gather information, seeking out those who had also suffered under Everard's rule. He knew that he couldn't do this alone. In the shadows of the town, Damien found others who were willing to fight. Old friends, acquaintances, and even strangers who shared his thirst for justice. Together they began to formulate a plan, a daring heist that would not only rob Lord Everard of his fortune, but also expose his crimes to the world. It was a plan that would require precision, courage, and the skills that Damien had honed over years of military service and his past as a thief. The heist would take place during a grand party that Lord Everard was throwing, with the wealthy aristocrats who supported his reign. While they reveled in the riches, Damien and his team would infiltrate the mansion, steal everything of value, and destroy the nobleman's life. To pull off the heist, Damien needed a team of skilled and determined individuals who shared his desire for justice. He started by reaching out to those who had been most affected by Lord Everard's tyranny. The first person he sought out was Finn, a former blacksmith who had lost everything when Everard's men seized his forge. Finn had been a close friend of Lila's, and his anger was palpable as Damien explained the plan. Everard took everything from me. If this means getting back at him, I'm in, Finn growled. Next, Damien approached Marla, a seamstress who had been forced into poverty after her husband was executed for his role in the rebellion. Marla's resourcefulness and knowledge of the town's social circles made her an invaluable asset to the heist. Lila was like a sister to me. I'll do whatever it takes to see Everard fall, Marla said, her eyes filled with determination. As word of the plan spread, more townsfolk joined the cause. Tess, a nimble pickpocket who knew the layout of the mansion, offered her skills. Elias, a former soldier turned street performer, provided muscle and strategy. Old Man Granger, a former servant of Everard, shared insider information of the mansion's security and layout. The team met in secret, planning every detail of the heist. They knew that timing would be critical and that any mistake would cost them everything. Damien took charge, using his experience to guide the team through each step. The heist would be more than just a robbery. It would be a statement, a message to Lord Everard and the people of Eldridge that they would no longer be oppressed. The plan was simple in its complexity. Marla would infiltrate the mansion as part of the staff, keeping an eye on the guests and creating distractions when needed. Tess and Elias would gain insider information on security, allowing Damien and Finn to break into the vault and steal the wealth that Everard had accumulated through bribes and exploitation. Old Man Granger would coordinate from a hidden location, using his knowledge of the estate to guide them. As the night of the heist approached, the tension in the town grew. The townsfolk were eager for justice, but they knew the risks involved. Damien, however, remained focused and calm. This was his chance to avenge his sister and bring down the man who had caused him so much pain. The night of the grand party arrived, and Lord Everard's mansion was alive with music, laughter, and opulence. The wealthy guests, dressed in their finest attire, were oblivious to the suffering of the people outside of the mansion's gates. The mansion itself was a fortress of luxury, its halls filled with extravagant decorations and priceless artifacts. For Damien and his team, it was the perfect setting for their plan. Damien, disguised as an aristocrat, blended seamlessly into the crowd. His military training allowed him to move with confidence, and his mask concealed his identity. As he moved through the mansion, he observed Lord Everard from a distance. The nobleman was the center of attention, reveling in his power and wealth. But beneath this smug exterior, Damien saw the man responsible for his sister's death. While Damien kept an eye out on Everard, Marla was busy creating distractions. She struck up conversations with the guests, ensuring that the attention was focused on the party and not on the suspicious activities taking place around them. Tess and Elias, meanwhile, were working to disable the mansion's security systems, creating a path for Damien and Finn to reach the vault. The first part of the plan went without a hitch. As the guests became more intoxicated, the mansion's defenses were weakened. Damien seized the opportunity to engage Lord Everard in conversation. He played the part of the aristocrat perfectly. Feigning interest in the nobleman's views on the townsfolk and the rebellion, Everard, completely unaware of Damien's true identity, spoke openly about the disdain for the poor and his belief that they were beneath him. As the conversation continued, Damien felt his anger rise, but he kept his composure. He knew that the time for revenge was near and that he needed to stay focused. With a final nod to Everard, he excused himself from the conversation and slipped away into the shadows. The heist had begun. Damien moved swiftly through the mansion's darkened corridors, his heart pounding with anticipation. He knew the success of the heist depended on precise timing and flawless execution. Every second counted, and there was no room for error. As he approached the vault, he signaled to Tess and Elias, who were waiting nearby. The vault was heavily guarded with intricate locks and traps designed to keep out intruders. But Damien's experience as a master thief gave him the skills needed to bypass the security measures. With Finn's help, Damien began working on the locks. The process was slow and meticulous, but the two men remained focused. They knew that any mistake could trigger the alarms and bring the guards down on them. As they worked, Marla continued to keep the guests distracted. She had positioned herself near the ballroom, ready to intervene if anyone strayed too close to the vault. Her nerves were on edge, but she remained calm, knowing that her friends were depending on her. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the last lock clicked open, and the vault door swung inward. Inside was a treasure trove of wealth, jewels, gold, and stacks of coin piled high. But Damien wasn't just after the wealth. In the center of the vault was a chest filled with incriminating documents, evidence of Lord Everard's corruption and illegal dealings. Damien quickly gathered the documents, while the rest of the team began loading the wealth into sacks. They worked quickly and efficiently, knowing that they only had minutes before the guards would notice something was wrong. Just as they were about to make their escape, a group of guards entered the vault. The team sprang into action, disarming the guards and knocking them unconscious before they could raise the alarm. With the guards neutralized, Damien and his team made their way to the exit, carrying the stolen wealth and documents with them. But before they could reach the safety of the hidden passage, they were confronted by Lord Everard himself. The nobleman had discovered the heist and had rushed to the vault in a desperate attempt to stop him. But as he faced Damien, he realized it was too late who he was dealing with. Damien stepped forward, holding up the incriminating documents. "It's over, Everard," he said, his voice filled with quiet fury. "Your reign of terror ends tonight." Everard's face twisted with fear as he realized the full extent of his downfall. His wealth, his power, everything he had built up his whole life was now being taken from him in an instant. The stolen wealth and incriminating documents were quickly transported to a hidden location where Damien's allies had prepared for the final phase of their plan. The documents were meticulously copied and distributed to trusted members of the rebellion, who then disseminated them to the public and to influential figures in the kingdom. Within hours, news of Lord Everard's corruption spread like wildfire, reaching every corner of Eldridge and beyond. The impact on Lord Everard was immediate and devastating. His once loyal supporters abandoned him, fearing the repercussions of being associated with a man who had so blatantly abused his power. The wealth that had secured his influence was gone, redistributed among the townsfolk who had suffered under his rule. As the people of Eldridge learned the truth, they began to rise up against Lord Everard. The streets, once filled with despair, now echoed with the sounds of protest and defiance. The townsfolk tore down the symbols of Lord Everard's tyranny, claiming the town and their lives. The nobleman's mansion, once a symbol of power, was ransacked and left in ruins. The final blow came when the king's envoys arrived in Eldridge, armed with the evidence of Everard's crimes. The nobleman was arrested and brought to trial, where he was stripped of his title, lands, and wealth. He was sentenced to spend the rest of his life in a dungeon, his name forever tarnished. As Lord Everard was led away in chains, Damien watched from the shadows, a sense of satisfaction settling over him. He had avenged his sister and brought justice to the people of Eldridge, but it wasn't just revenge that drove him. It was knowledge that he had made a difference, that he had given the people the power to stand up against tyranny. The townsfolk, now free from Everard's oppression, began to rebuild their lives. The wealth that had been stolen from them was returned, and the community came together to support one another. Eldridge was no longer a place of fear. It was a place of hope, resilience, and justice. As the days passed, Damien found himself at a crossroads. He had fulfilled his vow, but he knew that his journey was far from over. The world was full of injustice, and there were others like Lord Everard who needed to be brought down. But for now, he was content to stay in Eldridge, to help rebuild the town and to honor the memory of his sister. Eldridge was no longer just a town. It was a symbol of resistance, of the power of the people to stand up against tyranny. And Damien, the master thief turned avenger, would be there to protect it. On that note, that wraps up this story. If you haven't already, I would appreciate if you would like and subscribe. Also, leave a comment on any stories you want me to bring to life. But other than that, while this story may come to an end, the start of another begins.